Hi everyone, and welcome to another FaceHAMMER video.
Hello there.
Today we are going to be talking about all things General's Handbook. Backlinks on my thing.
I got one. It look,
Yay.
it just arrived. It just arrived. Oh, it smells good. It's not as good as a pack of Magic cards. So
get out.
Everything here is excellent, but it needs to smell a bit better.
Yeah, it's because there's no foil in it, right? So
yeah.
In this video, we are going to talk about the pitched battle pack for the Ghurish Heartlands, which is the sort of the yearly matched play rules for tournamenting that will be in play.
So I think there's been a bit of confusion about this, and I don't think it's probably because it's not entirely clear. But as far as it looks at this point, this is think of this like a year or a season of play, and this is how it's going to work for that period. So we don't know if it's going to be exactly 12 months or whatever, but at any rate, for the near future, this is how we're going to be playing competitive Warhammer at events or on the table.
Yeah, so in the core rules, it talks about you have the core rules, and on top of that, you have the match play of the battle pack, which changes some of the core rules. So we covered it in the live stream, but we're just going to talk about it. But we're going to focus really on the grand strategies and the battle tactics, because those elements we kind of skipped over a little bit, and they're quite important. And then we're going to follow this video series up, all with a series of videos about each scenario, some of the pitfalls, some of the things to look out for. So you need this kind of knowledge to understand that conversation. So rather than repeat ourselves every video, we'll do this video.
Yeah, this is a good starting
then
point.
You could
sure.
jump
Also,
into
how nice
scenarios.
Is this?
It's amazing.
Look, right?
It's amazing.
I opened it, and it's opened at an index.
It's so good, isn't it? And it's even got a rules reference on the back. It's it's a work of art. I know that Ben's very proud of it, and he should be. So
it's ruthlessly practical, it seems.
Hardback as well, which is nice. So you don't get any
tiny.
I think the 40k one is softback, the chapter approved, but yeah, this is better. I had the chapter. It doesn't have tabs in it, so this is better.
I wouldn't approve of that, mate. Tabs for life.
Tabs. So
we might be a bit biased there, though. Obviously.
Yeah, maybe being an AOS channel. So we'll go through.
So what are we going to run through in order in this one then?
So we're just basically going to go to the Pitch Battles 2021 tab in your General's Handbook if you're following along at home. If you've got yours yet, this will be out before it's released. So
oh my God, referencing a tab. This is the future.
I know. There's no numbers. The only thing I'm disappointed, there's no number references on this. So
yeah, I guess you can just use page references if there's a particular thing we want to direct people to.
So basically, it just tells you how you get started, which is essentially just how you play a game. So you
play a 2,000 point game
or 1,000. There's 2 points limits in there.
Yeah. 2,000.
So you agree a points limit. So obviously Byron's decided it's 2,000. Then you pick a faction.
There's nothing wrong with 1,000, but I think things have been pointed with 2,000 points in mind. So absolutely feel free to get to grips at 1,000 points. But if some things feel a bit weird or massively over or underpowered, there's a good chance that they will feel a lot more logical at 2,000. You can rattle through 1,000 point games very fast, though. You know, like 45 minutes or something like that. Start a bit closer. So if you're looking to get the mechanics, just kind of get some reps in, I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's particularly good practice for Warhammer as we discuss it.
No. So you pick a faction, which is the top title of a box of points, which comes in the Pitch Battle Profiles booklet, which I very conveniently have left next to my bed with my notebook for writing lists. So I don't have it. I was just looking for it. There you go. So Byron can flick to a profile. There you go. So the top
burgundy bit at the
red, Cities of Sigmar, that is a faction. Okay. So
or a bin bag of collection of scrolls.
In Cities, it's a bin bag of scrolls. Yeah. So sorry, Sam.
Sorry, Sam.
You have to take the. You have to. It's actually Tom Maudsley's fault because that's what how he described it to me, and I just agree. So yeah. So basically, you go through the that list and construct your army. You might write a roster. and that has to have your enhancements, which includes triumphs and things like that. And then you determine your battle plan. So basically, if you go to an event, they'll probably tell you what the mission is.
Yep. These are scenarios for mission/scenarios.
Yeah, that's the official word is battle plans. So we'll go with that now. But yeah, scenarios in old money, or missions if you're 40k place. I think they're called missions. So you have your points limit. It tells you how many leaders you can have, how many battle line units you can have, behemoths, artillery, endless spells, reinforced units, which is, we talked about reinforcement points. You can look at our video about constructing an army if you want to know more about this. Allies, the recommended table size, and the number of terrain, which is the same for both points limit.
We've been asked a lot, so just a quick clarification: there seems to be nothing that says that your allies can't be part of your formations, your core battalions.
Yeah, I believe that's the case.
It's been asked a lot, and it's one of the first questions that I asked. So
that's how I interpret it. Whether or not they FAQ it to reverse that, but if you read the rules raw, that's what it says. Yeah,
it doesn't say you can't, so you can currently.
Yeah. So then you have pick your army, as we said. So faction. Done. All units must be from a single faction. Then you have your battlefield roles, which we just explained. Battalions. So battalions says you can include core battalions in your army, but cannot include war scroll battalions. So you can't have any of the funky special rule ones from your army books. You can only have the core battalions, which
There's 2 more added in this book.
There are indeed. So so we've got. We'll get onto those because they're a bit further down the list. Yep. But yes, there are 2 more.
And they're convenient as well. I think they slot in very nicely because there's it feels like there's like a bit of a gap between what's very easily achievable and what you'd like to be achievable for the majority of armies, being like warlord plus one thing, and then there's not particularly easily room to have something else.
I always found that most lists I write, I want little heroes, like less than 10 wound heroes, so I unlock warlord and potentially another one. So I normally want like at least 3 of them to unlock 2 formations.
Heroes on foot, or someone on a Dracoline or something like that. Very useful.
So under strength reinforced units, so it says pitch battle table lists how many reinforced units you can include, so up to 4. Only battle lines can be done twice, and you cannot include under strength units in a pitch battle army. And if you do a unit twice, it counts as 2 of your points out of the 4. So if you have 2 double reinforced battle line units, that is your lot.
You're done
for the rest of your army. Okay. Allies, again, it's 1 per every 4 unit up to 400 points. They don't count towards your battle line units. They do count towards leader, behemoth, and artillery, which is how it was in the old edition if you played AOS2. Then we've got a bit about coalition, which I think has caused quite a bit of confusion. So these are like allies, but not allies. So essentially,
they're one step more friendly than allies.
Yeah.
Like if you're into the fluff, they might be people who historically have cooperated before, and
So it basically says coalition units differ as they are more closely tied to your faction. Thus, restrictions that apply to allies do not necessarily apply to coalition. For example, coalition units can be given enhancements. So allies can't have enhancements, but coalition units can. And it is an example that Chaos Warriors with the Mark of Khorne in a Blades of Khorne army and Stormcast Eternals in a Cities of Sigmar army. So it says that if an army can include them, it will be explained in the allegiance abilities for the army's faction. Now, obviously, at the moment, no allegiance ability talks about coalition units. I am sure we'll see something in the FAQ because obviously it's mentioning Slaves to Darkness units and Khorne, and the faction rules break being able to cross mark. So I'm sure there's going to be something in there about that.
Yeah, and I imagine it'll be in line with the story in the game or the historical allies. So you might see certain chaos allying, coalescing, co-allying with each other, but others won't because they don't like each other.
No, and one of the important things is they don't count for your battle line.
Okay.
So previously, like in Hedonites, you could take Chaos Warriors as battle line. You can't anymore because obviously we need to punish Hedonites for being so good and powerful. And
the ROP. Although I did find out the other day that I can take my 10 wound heroes and subtract one of their wounds with a really weird artifact. I mean, I can get into other battalions.
That's the girdle, right?
Yeah, I think
From
so.
the Godseekers. that gives you a -1 wound. But interesting.
-1 to be hit or something like that. But yeah, it just felt a bit cheeky.
That is quite cheeky. That's why the +2 wound artifact's weird, because you're like, suddenly I'm a big hero. Don't want to be a big hero.
Yeah.
I'm a big boy now.
Bye-bye lookouts and less good for core battalions. So
I don't know when you work that out, though, because enhancements technically are generated from the battalions, so...
It says... yeah.
We'll get back to that one. So then you've got endless spells, fill out your roster. Now, one of the things that's important is when you pick your roster, you've got to pick your grand strategy. So if you're going to a tournament, you pick one mission, if you like, secret mission, hidden agenda, but it's not hidden, it's open. But it's the thing that you're going to try and achieve every game that's going to give you victory points in every scenario towards winning. And you don't know what you're facing, you don't know what mission it is, you just pick something that you think your army is good at, basically.
Yep.
We'll cover
written
those
on your list, available for your opponent, you know. Yeah.
Then it says basically go to battle, roll the dice, 1 to 3, go to one table, 4 to 6, go to another table, then roll dice. You know, and it's got the 12 missions there, so won't go through those, but there's 12 of them. Then battle tactics. These are secondary objectives that you try and achieve during the battle.
And they're a big deal, right?
Oh, massive. Yeah. You can win games without actually playing around the objectives. So sometimes when you played AOS2 and you might play an army that just is very defensive and blobs onto objectives, and you go, well, I can't really fight there, get that off. I mean, the classic was the Fire Slayer, Half-Guard, Berserker, Death Star.
Yeah,
then you're like, well, I can't win the game.
Battle line scenarios, yeah.
What you can do is play around your grand strategy and your battle tactics and deny them, because a lot of them revolve like around... There are a couple to do with objectives, but there are some to do with killing or taking something back, so you can control that so they can't score them.
Exactly. It's nice because it means that, let's say, with a concerted effort on turn 3, you could steal an objective once. You could play that into... I can't hold it for an entire game and just block there and be that resilient, but I can concentrate on it now. Here it is. Done that. Okay, tick.
Yeah, and like some of the missions are easy to score when you go first, when they're not contested at all, which we'll talk about. So, yeah, you pick one in your hero phase. You have to score it that turn. You can't duplicate them in the game. So you have to pick 5 out the list in the game.
Yep.
Everyone's worth 2. Grand Stretcher's worth 3, pretty much in every scenario. So that's quite a significant amount of points. Can you imagine there's 5 rounds at 2, so that's 10 victory points and 3 from the Grands. That's 13 victory points up for grabs.
Huge, isn't it?
And most missions you only can get 3 per turn for scenario. So like for the other things, so you're only going to get a maximum of 15. So actually, like if 9 of them are from outside of the mission, really, it's quite a big deal.
And you might be able to deny your opponent the what's going on the table whilst trying to get yours. So some interesting levels of nuance there, I think.
And there's also a lot of the missions. It doesn't matter how many objectives you hold. It's just you have more than your opponent. So there's 5 on the table. You don't need to have all 5. You just have to have 2 and they have none. Then you score it. Or they have 3, they have 2. You score it. So you don't need to like spread your army out. It's one of the things I realized in one of my games. I spread my army out very thin and I didn't need to. So then it talks about terrain, and it talks about setting up terrain. So 3 inches from the edge, 6 from other terrain, and 3 from all objectives. It says some events will have predetermined battlefields, so it depends on what you're doing. Then you've got faction terrain. It says it must be set up more than 3 from all over terrain, 3 from all objectives, and that's in addition to other restrictions. It says use the mysterious terrain from 28.1.3 for scenery rules. So that's where the old mystical damned comes into play. There's only 1 chart. Thankfully, all the commanding and all that's gone. Then I think what would be quite nice, though, is that like obviously in the pack in the future, they might change some of these rules because the pack would overwrite the core rules. So even stuff around reinforcements, you could just say you can't reinforce more than once, or you know you have more reinforcement points. So they're quite nice levers to pull each season to make the game mix the game up.
Absolutely, and people can do that in their own events if they wish as well. You know, if you want to have an event
special
that's
battle
all
pack,
about, yeah, exactly.
Then you've got the alternating deployment. So it says that you use that 1 unit at a time. And it's basically the important thing is one player finished setting their army up first, their opponent must set up all the units. Then you've got stealing the initiative. Do not roll off to see US priority. The player who finished their army has priority in the first battle round. And that means they get to choose the turn order. So it's not a roll off, which we're used to. But if you read the core rules, you might go, oh, I thought you rolled off. So that's one of the things that overwrites. If you read just the core rules and you get into a tournament,
people thought
why are you rolling off for this? Why aren't you rolling?
People thought it had changed, didn't they? But it's just how it is.
So we've got the realm rules for the Ghurish Heartlands, which is basically this is like this season is where it is. It's in Ghur.
About the monsters, isn't it?
It is all about monsters.
Basically.
So
good.
There's some special rules. So this one's quite important. So you've got predators and prey. Once per battle round, you score 1 additional victory point if any enemy monsters were slain that battle round. So taking monsters is important, but also they die. So you might decide that actually I'll go for the monster because that scores me a point. So it's quite important. Then you've also got seismic shift at the start of the 3rd battle round. After the players roll off to determine who has the first turn, the player taking the 2nd turn can pick 1 objective on the battlefield and remove it.
What a head screw. Right?
So,
like, do I want to go first in this really important point in the middle of the game? Do I want to go second? Do I want to give it away?
Yeah. And this is 2
actually
massive when you play. Like this makes a huge difference. When I was playing against Les, we were playing a mission with 4 objectives, and there's 2 home ones and 2 middle ones, something like Border War from old. And because he won the roll and went, well, I have to take the turn, or I was going to table him. Basically, he was like, well, I have to take the turn because you're going to kill me. And he went, and I took the objective that he had most of his army on, and the other one was well in my control, which meant he was never going to catch me back up on the scenario. So it's a really interesting mechanic.
You want to have established a good board position prior to turn 3 generally, or, be way ahead, or just have accepted that, maybe this time you don't get it, but it doesn't matter too much.
There are there is one mission, it's auto win turn 3 if you have all of them. So if your opponent takes that, because before you had it, if they go in first in turn 3, then at the end of turn 3 they win and you didn't even get a go. But now, because you can remove one of the key objectives, you don't have to be quite as aggressive, so you don't have to spread yourself out so thin, so you could remove the one in their territory that they've really camped on.
Yeah, and then put all your effort into taking the other one if you've tagged yours.
But then you could always give that turn up to get the choice of the objective if you play that way. So it's quite important. It also, when you get into the double turn, if you've gone first and they're on the double between turn 1 to turn 2, you'll be on the chance for the double between turns 2 to turn 3. So you probably get the choice more likely because you win draws if you go at the bottom of the 2nd turn. So actually, you can even use the turn before to determine the order to give you better odds into the next turn. Mm-hmm. So there's levels within levels, right? So it's
definitely the patient man's edition of Age of Sigmar, isn't it?
I think the edition rewards good play and good decision making more than the previous edition did. So I'll leave it like that. I did say to Laurie, I said, "What are you going to do when you get found out?" But he didn't answer me. Sorry, kidding. So then you've got one of the important things about seismic shift I will mention is some of the missions have what they call prime objectives, which cannot be removed.
Okay.
And they have a different icon on the map. They've got an icon with like a spiky star around it, and the other ones are just a solid circle. So prime ones can't be removed. It does tell you in the missions. You also get a bonus spell, which is quite interesting. It's on a 5 and a range 12, and you could pick a hero that's not a monster, and that hero gains the monster keyword until your next hero phase.
Really big deal.
So it allows you to rampage, but it also gives up a victory point if your opponent kills that. in their turn or your turn. So if you do it on a little hero and then he goes into combat to do his rampage and gets killed, you've just given your victory point up. There are also battle tactics and strategies around monsters as well.
So how does this work though? Because they some of the stuff that you think you might benefit from, you have to do at the start of your hero phase. Like let's say I've got a wizard who's on foot in contact with a monster, and I want to be able to do the thing where finest hour, where you get +1 to hit against it or whatever it is.
That's a hero. So that's a heroic action, so they could do it anyway. And rampages are in the end of the charge phase, so there's no restriction.
Okay then, but the heroic actions aren't at the start of the hero phase.
Yeah, they are, but it doesn't matter because that doesn't have anything to do with keywords for being a monster. It's hero is the keyword. And they have a hero keyword because they're a hero. So monster is in the charge phase, so rampage is still... You couldn't be at a rampage if you didn't buff yourself into being a monster, basically.
Got you.
You've also got a realm command ability, which is at the start of the combat phase, the unit that receives it must be a monster until the end of the phase. When you look up the value on the unit's damage table it's treated, it suffered 0 wounds. So you can fight at the top of your profile.
Yeah.
Which is pretty
Feels
big.
like that one might have been tested out in quite a few books that we've seen in the last year.
Yeah.
So we know it's powerful. Yeah, it is.
It means as well, like if you know you're going to go second, like they've charged you and you're like, well, I'm just going to pop it and just... But obviously the problem is you're not getting all out defense then because you can't have 2 command abilities.
Yeah, so it makes kind of like dying in a blaze of glory is now just a bit more damaging, basically. That makes a big difference on a few monsters, doesn't it? Huge difference. Yeah. Yeah,
but obviously like if you're a hero as well, you'd get your finest hour, then you'd also get your rampage, Titanic Jewel maybe, and then you don't care, you just go, I'll fight at the top just in case, but if you're already hurt. But
to be noted, it's not in the right phase to be able to affect your movement, so there's nothing you can do about that. It's just for fighting purposes.
Just fighting.
You can't gain back 8 inches of flying move. So
it should have been an interesting use for it, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
So we got the special core battalions.
Yeah, pretty forgiving, right?
One of these I think is auto include in pretty much every army, but so you can include the following core battalions in your army in addition to those found in the core book. In addition, you cannot include the same core battalion from those below more than once. So the ones in the core book you can have multiple of. The ones below you can only have once. Okay?
They're both good as well.
They are good. So you've got the Alpha Beast pack, which is a behemoth that is not a leader. Okay? So after armies have been set up before the first battle round, you can make a normal move of d6 inches with each unit in the battalion. It's up to 2 to 3 monsters.
Yep, so you'd roll for each of those separately. That's not roll a d6, then move all of them that much. Yep, big deal. On a smaller board, that's a very big deal. Monsters are generally fairly fast, quite a lot of them fly. That makes a huge difference. We
found that you just feel like you're right on top of each other, in this edition, because you're like 9 inches. Well, you're only like 22 inches apart at a maximum normally.
Yeah,
and you're like the majority 9 inches from the 18 inches max.
Yeah,
it's not even a movement 6 thing could get a double 6 charge. If you're lucky.
Yeah.
So you've got Hunters of the Heartlands. So this one is really good. So basically, units for this battalion cannot be picked when your opponent carries out a rampage.
And this is 2, what type of unit is that? 2 troops units.
Any unit. So they're called troops, but that is just a unit that is not a leader, artillery, or behemoth.
Yep.
So that could be Blood Knights.
Yep.
I know the picture's a guy on foot with a spear and a shield, and it says troops. They don't have to be battle line, which I've seen a few people get confused. They could just be any unit in your army that is not a leader, artillery, or behemoth.
Or behemoth. Yep.
So the images can be a little bit confusing. It's like the commander is a leader, doesn't have to be a monster or a mounted hero. It could just be any hero. Yep. They just got to have leader as a battlefield role. So grand strategies.
Yep.
So these are the important when you put on your army list. So basically you've got 7, is it 7? I miscounted. 8 grand strategies. So you pick one on your roster. Now, what I would say to people is try and pick ones that are more in your control. So when I go through this, I'll say, I think this is good. This is not a good pick. Obviously, your army composition makes a huge difference to this.
Yep.
And if you're...
And some things...
Yeah, go on.
I was going to say some things may be more in your control for some armies than others. So killing your opponent's general, if you're playing KO, may be a lot more achievable than it is if you're playing someone who has to foot slog their way to stuff to kill it. Even though it's not within your army, that still is more within your control than it would be for most armies.
So like the first one I don't like, because it's sever the head. When the battle ends, you complete this if there are no heroes from your opponent's starting army on the battlefield.
No.
Because you've got no control how many they have, how defensive they are, where they set them up, if you can get to them. They could just set a hero up in the back corner and just run around all game that you can't get to. Because they're going to know that's your strategy.
Some heroes don't have a role on the battlefield other than doing an action that doesn't have a range attached to it or has a very long range. So yeah, agreed. I don't think anyone would ever pick that one.
I don't think it's a good choice. You might be particularly confident about your ability to snipe heroes, but I still don't think it's a good choice.
If that's the case, I think there's easier stuff to achieve.
You've got Hold the Line, which is good if you've got resilient battle lines. If you're playing Slaves to Darkness with Knights and Warriors, this is a really good one. So when the battle...
too.
Yeah, Plague Bearers. When the battle ends, you complete the grand strategy if there are any battle line units from a starting army on the battlefield.
That's pretty forgiving. Any, not all, not your start, everyone you started with, but just any. And some armies, let's not forget, it just says from your starting army. Starting army what does that mean? Because that's an important thing.
So it's at the bottom there. It says several grand strategies and tactics refer to a starting army. A player's starting army is made up of units in the army that was set up before the first battle round. So if you set them up in reserve, they don't count. Including, it says including any reserve units. So they do count, ignore me. Literally read the next sentence, Russell. That would be good, wouldn't it? Units that are added to the player's army after the battles begin are not included. So summoning...
They're not summoned, but you can leave if you wish, 5 Blood Knights that are battle line because you're your general off to the side and then just pop them on later, and that's absolutely fine.
And it says neither are units that have been destroyed and returned to play. So if you've got Soul Blight and you bring your Skelly Wobbles back, they don't count. So
super achievable for the right type of army. Like if you are a resilient battle line, you should be considering why you shouldn't take that one, I guess.
And some armies just have lots of everything's a battle line unit, right? I mean, Iron Jaws are a bit like that, aren't they? I'm pretty sure everything in Iron Jaws army is battle line.
Yeah.
Like if you take the right, I think if you can make Gore Grunters battle line as well. So
Brutes,
basically the whole lot
Grunters, Ard Boys,
which is all they use, right? So, I mean, they're not the most resilient things, but if you've lost all of that, you've probably lost the game anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it's
the only restrictive thing here is obviously coalition units don't count as battle lines, so your allies or your coalition couldn't be scoring for that. But
that's a good point.
Yeah, that seems like a good one.
You've got Vendetta. When the battle ends, you complete this if the model chosen to be your opponent's general has been slain and the model chosen to be your general has not been slain. Again, I don't like that one.
It's iffy, right?
If it was just keep your general alive, it would be all right, but it's not.
Or just kill your opponents,
Yeah, it's both. No. It's a two-pronged one, so I think it's a lot harder to achieve.
A lot of the armies that are particularly good at picking your opponent as well have squishy generals. So I used the example of KO already. Let's say you got some dude in a dirigible suit with 8 wounds or whatever. Not the most resilient, healable hero available, but an army that's very good at picking out, Nagash and killing him or whatever. Few armies are good at both parts of that, I would say.
Yeah. I think one thing that might be quite interesting is using the Celestant Prime. Because basically
stay for a couple of turns.
You could keep him off until turn 5, I think, still.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't
have a blaze of glory and hit their general.
Well, he can come down and auto make the charge because you just make it a 12, and then you just have 7 damage-free attacks and just kill it.
On top of your comet that you could have landed on its head as well.
Yeah. So it might be quite a fun one, but it's so techy, I wouldn't take it. I'd just not for me.
That makes for some good stories. I think anyone who is anyone who is taking that and manages to complete that with their general killing their opponent's general just deserves to be bought a beer whether they won or lost the game at the end, or possibly a round. Yeah,
I do think it's fun that you could take a harder one just to like for your own personal kudos. So like if you were going to an event and you're like, well, I'm not that bothered about my overall being the most efficient, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a bit of fun, and I'm going to take Vendetta, and I'm going to take a really techie combo, like, you know, something that can assassinate. And I'm literally, every game is, can my general kill their general?
Like Kairos and Archeon or something weird.
Yeah. Archeon build would probably be all right with that. It's Archeon, so I'll just kill the other. But you normally make a little hero the general, which is the irony, right?
I'd love to do an event where I comped people by picking their grand strategy for them, depending what their list was.
Ooh, no, you'd never get it, would you? So you just pick you got any priests? No. Oh. So then you've got dominating presence. So complete this grand strategy. There are more units from your starting army on the battlefield than there are units from your opponent's starting army.
Another fairly soft one for the right armies. You know, are you resilient? Do you have several units, or are they really big, or are they healable? You know, obviously they can't have died and been resurrected and count. You could go down to one skeleton left and heal all the rest with.
If you've got a particularly MSU army, so say you've got like a Lumineth, like kangaroo army or something like that's very hard to get hold of and very like evasive, you probably could do that one fairly simply.
Yeah. Also, armies that take a huge amount of heroes. Like if you've got a load of casters that are going to stand fairly far back, and then a resilient battle line that's going in front of people, starting with 5 or 6 heroes just instantly puts you in a pretty good spot.
Or you just basically play Khorne, right? And you take MSU Khorne with loads of heroes, and you go, well, you've got to kill my units to stop me getting my grand strategy, but you kill blood units, I get blood tithe, so fill your boots.
Yeah.
Lots of little min-sized units, so just go kill them all.
I think played well, MSU Khorne are going to be pretty powerful in this edition.
And MSU means many small units, for people who don't know. That just means having lots of minimum sized units. So then we've got Beastmaster. So complete this grand strategy if there are any monsters from your starting army on the battlefield. So
this is really swingy, isn't it? Because some people could put all their eggs in one basket and be like, I've rocked up, I've got Archeon, I'm making him hard as hell, and if he's alive, I'm getting this. And if he's lost, I probably lost the game anyway. But
obviously, Sons of Behemat probably like that one, because they're all monsters, right? Like 4 of them. Like if you lost all your big guys, you probably lost. So I think as well, like it doesn't matter how many your opponent has. It's just that you have a monster left at the end of the game.
You're fairly in control of that. Yeah.
I don't know as well, because it's monster keyword, and it's so if you had a wizard from your starting army and you go last.
You didn't start as a monster, though. How does that?
Doesn't matter, though. You're still part of the starting army with a monster keyword at the end of the game, aren't you? If you've cast a spell. Does that work? Is it reaching?
That sounds like it needs FAQ in, because otherwise...
But if you last to your next hero phase, right? Yeah. So if you cast the spell and make yourself a monster in the last turn, and you survive to the end of the battle, you've got the keyword and you're part of the army at the beginning. Does it count?
Yeah.
I don't know. It might need an FAQ, but if that counts, that's quite sneaky.
Yeah, that's very sneaky. Probably shouldn't be done. Well, I don't know. If you put loads of stuff into like +7 to cast magic, then why not?
Nagash, he's already a monster. It's fine.
Imagine if you played
I mean, like, if you're playing Nagash, you might as well take that one, right? Because if you lose Nagash, you lose the game, right? So you might as well just go, fine, I'll do that.
I quite like the all eggs in one. Remember, you can affect your opponent with these quite a lot as well. So if there's one that is like the second most easy for you to achieve, but you think is going to screw with your opponent's head more, and you get some joy from doing that, or you think it's going to be better for you on the table overall, you could absolutely, put your onion layers on.
Do you imagine, like, if you're playing like Avangori, like Soulblight with Manfred or something, and they're like, Manfred's just teleporting away every turn, and it's like, I can't get him, and you're like, you're not getting it, Mitch, not getting it. Not getting me. Not getting me.
I like that they put something in that ties to the pack as well. I like. How it's all about the Ghur.
It's great. No, let's not do that. So prize sorcery. Sorry, I can't even get in hyped for my own joke. So you complete this if there are any wizards from your starting army on the battlefield. So
you get pretty open for the right type of army. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Archeon, Nagash, Teclis. That may as well. Yeah, that may as well be
they
monster.
Get the keyword wizard, but
May as well read
Wardens?
monster, because all the monsters that are easier to protect, or a lot of them tend to be, pretty resilient, high wound key pieces. So
It's good.
they're
I
quite
used it.
comparable.
That's what I tick on my soul blight because I've got 5 wizards,
All right.
and like the necromancer is particularly hard to get hold of because he's just like scurrying around the back, bouncing his guns off.
Shout out to Lumineth who break the rules for everything in the game, because you could have started with you could have 13 wizards.
Do they have the keyword
right?
wizard on the war scrolls? I was just wondering that. Or are they count as a wizard, or do they have the keyword? Keyword bold?
I'm pretty sure.
Maybe you can have a look while I carry on.
going for a Google. Yeah. Which unit?
Wardens. Check wardens. So all sentinels. So pillars of belief is priests. So might be okay for fire slayers, maybe. They've got priests, haven't they? And so do Khorne, but certainly don't have wizards.
Is it found it? Does it need to be in the keywords?
Yes.
Or
keyword
the High Warden of this unit is a wizard. That has keyword bold in the magic descriptive part.
Okay. So
the High Warden of this unit is a wizard, while the unit has 5 or more models, and that is keyword bold.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Would be fairly easy to knock them down below 5 models, I guess.
It would, but well, I don't know. It depends how many of the units you got in your army.
And then Predator's Domain, when the battle ends, you complete this if you control more terrain features than your opponent. So maybe a good Sylvaneth one.
Yeah.
So like because basically terrain is captured like an objective, but it's within 3, not within 6 of the splat, basically.
And you can catch any piece of terrain? Yeah.
More terrain than your opponent. So if you're spreading out a lot with lots of MSU fast units, that's quite a good one.
Equally, if you've got an army that just kind of advances up the table in a wave, then in a lot of situations, as long as you're not playing someone who can pop up things behind you, and even if they can do, you might have just, deleted people up until 2/3 across the board.
Units can only contest 1. So
yeah, good point.
So if you had a big long blob unit, it can't get multiple. So because it says control. Yeah, okay. There's rules for that in the core rules, so it's okay. It's a bit techie. I'm not 100% sure I'd pick that one. I think for me, it's going to be like hold the line, Beastmaster, sorcery, or belief, depending on what your army composition is.
Yeah.
If you've got maybe dominating presence, but I would take that over Predator's Domain. Although, it might be quite a good one, Predator's Domain, because the terrain won't be near objectives, right? Because they're not. So, because they can't set them up near objectives. So if you're losing the mission, they're not going to stop you getting the ground strategy because they're probably on the objectives and not on the terrain.
Yeah.
Therefore,
or if you're an army that tries to get up early, then you could really confuse your opponent. How would that feel? Like turn 3, you start just running away from the objectives because you've got a sneaky plan or whatever. These definitely add a huge level to the game, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, massive amount.
So that's on your list. So at your peril. I probably wouldn't take that on an event because there might only be like 3 bits of terrain on the table or something stupid, or there should be 8, but
there should be 8, yeah.
Yeah. So battle tactics. So these are start of the hero phase. So these ones, you tell your opponent what you're going for, and you got to the end of that turn. So
There's
again,
8 of these as well, and you'll pick 5 throughout the game. So it's quite a bit of choice.
Obviously, because you've got reactive command abilities as well, like sometimes you can use your command abilities to try and disrupt these. If you've got anything that can move or do stuff in their turn, particularly if you've got stuff that means you can move or countercharge or
redeploy exists for everyone, doesn't it?
Yeah, or like just better core is just great, right? So, so you've got broken ranks. Pick one battle line unit for your opponent's army on the battlefield. You complete this battle tactic. The unit's destroyed during the turn. If it was destroyed by a monster or an ability of a monster, score an additional victory point.
So all of these are score
At the end of your turn.
It's all this turn, isn't it? So you do this in your turn. Yeah. It's not battle round.
No, it's your turn. Not
do hold that in mind. Yeah, you've got until it's your opponent's turn to make sure that you've achieved this.
Yeah, and what's quite good about this is that basically, like, I had a game where I had a unit of like, do you know, like when you get down to like 1 or 2 models in a unit and you make them inspired to pin the other person in combat?
Yeah.
So I had a unit of Ard boys down to like 2 models, and then like it's an easy mission to kill those 2 Ard boys in their go. So it was like, well, they're just going to get that one.
Yeah.
So, but then you could even do stuff like you could retreat out and then get your monster to come in or breathe on them with its breath weapon to kill them to get an extra point to get an extra bonus.
Yeah,
or if you're a hero, you could cast the spell from the wizard onto that hero to make them a monster to then charge, then stomp on them or something like that. So,
yeah. It says destroyed, not slain as well, so you don't have to have killed it yourself if it dies in any manner, including battle shock or anything like that.
It says an attack made by a friendly monster or an ability by a friendly monster. So if you to get the extra point, but yes, you're right. You don't have to do it to destroy it. Is just destroy it. But if you want the extra point, you have to do it with an attack or an ability from the monster.
Just imagining someone like, some weird interactions where something could die when it wasn't meant to. If you were saving it up, quite cool.
You got Conquer, pick an objective on the battlefield your opponent controls. You complete this if you control that at the end of the turn.
Pretty easy one for the majority of armies. I think
there's normally at some point in the game you're going to get one back off someone, aren't you? So
you've got to be patient with these though, because you might want to save your easy ones for later in the game and get the slightly more iffy ones out because you don't know what's going to happen. So.
Plus, you might end up in a situation where you go into a turn, you kill all their battle line units, and then you can't score broken ranks because you haven't used it. So, and sometimes like if you take an objective with a small skirmishy unit, you might to get 1 extra bonus point. That might give them an easy battle tactic to get 2 points back.
Yeah.
So actually, you're probably better off not going for it.
Yeah, they're very, very.
So you have to be really careful with how you pick and what you choose to do, because normally you would just grab the objectives all the time with whatever can get them. Like our 5 dogs put a toe in against his 6 men in his big blob. But then if he goes, right, well, all right, I'll just take objective back, kill you. You only gain 1, he's going to gain 2. So it's like your swing is it's a negative swing for you.
Yeah, I think you're also, it's very easy to look at the new edition and think, oh, well, I'll take MSU everywhere and it's all going to be better and it's less complex with reinforcements or whatever. But still turning up with resilient large units of battle line is, I think that's something that people are probably going to take a little bit of time to come round to.
That's why I think the reach thing doesn't matter, because if you take big blobby defensive units, they're just there to survive, right?
Who's going to shift 18 at Ogre Gluttons, to use the meme example?
Yeah, or 30 Chaos Warriors, 60 wounds.
Yeah, right.
4 up save, 5 up ward against mortals.
15 Chaos Knights, 9 Storm Fiends. There's loads of crazy examples of big battle line stuff that can now be given a better save than it could previously.
30 Blood Warriors with Brazen Rune on, whatever it is. Bronze Flesh, I think it is actually. And then,
it's Bronze Flesh.
Slay the Warlord. You complete a tactic if the model chosen to be your opponent's general is slain during the turn. If that model was destroyed by an attack made by a friendly monster or an ability of a friendly monster, get an extra point.
Spell's an ability, isn't it? Just to check.
No.
If I zap, I've charged myself up with Arcane Bolt with Nagash, and I run into someone and kill them, it doesn't count.
I think so. Is it an ability? It's not an ability, is it? It might be an ability. It depends on the wording. I'd have to check the wording for Arcane Bolt. Off the top of my head, I don't know. But abilities are like things on the war scroll. I don't want to stop and check, so let us know what you think. So because I think a spell is not an ability it's not technically ability. There is a bit in the book that explains what an ability is. So if you read that, it'll probably explain it. Off the top of my head, I'd have to check it. Yeah. I don't want to say either way. I don't know.
Check in the comments, guys. Someone will have done our research for us, and thank you in advance. So we've got ferocious.
The only other thing about this as well, because it says the model chosen to be your opponent's general. So I'm also not sure how that works with models that count as general in addition. So if you've got, like, in my list, I've got Manfred and I've got a White King general. I didn't choose Manfred to be my general. I chose my White King to be the general.
Yeah, or Invaders, where you've got, actually no, all of
You
those
chose those. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't
only
know.
If you had Manfred and he was your general and only general, would that be the situation
I
in which
guess
you
so.
would count? Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
We're picking
It's a bit
everything
weird
today, aren't we?
because I guess it might get FAQ'd. You could argue that you didn't choose them because it's automatic, right? They just count as. So, but
Yeah.
Ferocious Advance. When you pick this battle tactic, pick 3 different units from your starting army on the battlefield. You complete this battle tactic to all units you picked, run in the following movement phase, and finish that run within 3 of each other. If all 3 were monsters, score 1 additional victory point.
Well, that second part's pretty tricky for 98% of armies in the world, right?
It's actually really easy if you've got 3 monsters.
If you have that army, yeah, and particularly FAC, FAC want this all day, every day, right? I've got run and charge, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can also cast a spell for your wizard to make a wizard a monster, and then run next to 2 monsters, and then they run, and you don't really move them anywhere, and you just score it. So, like, you can. I find that
move 1 inch and do this.
Yeah, because you just run, and you just
you have to
just go. Yeah, I'm still there. I'm still within 3, so done.
Yep.
What you don't want to do is run a model, move them like 20 inches forward, and then try and run and catch up behind them, and then you realise you're not in range. Sons of Behemat is a really good turn 1.
Sons of Behemat, I think, perform extremely well with a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here because they only have 4 models and they count as everything. So why not?
And that's got to be 3 within each other. So not a chain of 1, 2, 3
triangle,
but it's got to be like a triangle. So you're within 3 of both of the other monsters or both of the other models that run. You do it with units. I mean, it's fairly easy to do just with units. So, like, if you're going first, you're going to run your screens up with something behind it. You're probably going to do it right because you just run screen, and then sewing up between it, and just make sure that gap is free in a little triangle in the middle when you've done it. So it's quite a good one to do because late game that's very hard to do because you want to be charging, you don't want to be running.
Yeah.
But if you go first, you're like, well, that's an easy one to get, and you don't even have to move very far. You could just literally run. If you're just going to blob your army around as a group, you might as well just go, well, I was just going to run, and I'm just going to run, and then just stop, and then you're like, well, I get it. So it's quite a good one to do.
Wizards or things without shooting attacks, or things that aren't going to charge. There's quite a lot of those in most people's turn 1. So see that being used quite a lot.
Yeah.
Quite hard to get it with the monsters though for most people. All right then. Next, bring it down.
Yep.
So when you reveal
bring it down for me,
tactic, I will. I'll try. When you reveal this battle tactic, pick 1 enemy monster on the battlefield. You complete this tactic if that unit is destroyed during this turn. If that enemy monster was destroyed by an attack made by a friendly monster or an ability of a friendly monster, you score 1 additional victory point. Pretty good. Interestingly, if you shoot someone else's monster and the final wounds are taken and you shot them with a ironclad, you'll get this. Right?
Is it an ironclad monster?
It's got to be a monster.
It's not.
Oh, is it not monster?
Behemoth.
It's just a behemoth.
Yeah, it doesn't have a monster keyword, right? It's got a
Alarial.
There you go. Better example.
I'll swap it out. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna keep booking. Actually, I think you'll find
it's fine
because you can't pick these weird fringe things that don't make sense.
Well, I think these are the type of questions that our astute viewers are going to ask, unless they're more astute than me, in which case they will have realised that it's not a thing. But yeah, there's that makes people with shots like Alarials like that is good, right? Just I got a free point because I killed something that I was going to kill anyway. Vordry isn't quite as good an example anymore, but there's some weird stuff out there that has, like 1 high quality long range attack. You might have a triumph to use, or you might have an ability for reroll 1s, or extra rend or anything like that. Being able to squeeze 1 point practically for free to kill something that you wanted to kill anyway is absolutely great. So I think it's quite nice that there's one in here that gives those units a distinct plus. And there's multiple things.
I'm pretty sure abilities are just things on the war scroll, so spells don't count.
Okay then.
Just have a
So
look while you're chatting.
shooting attacks, roars.
Yeah, if you add
whatever.
something on the like the war score that says when you charge, you do blah blah blah. And I think like even like monstrous rampage, it says this is an ability. Like
Yeah.
so like
Impact
just,
hits. Yeah. Impact hits are a pretty tasty one. Anyone who could do mortal wounds at range, stuff like that. Okay then. Aggressive expansion. When you reveal this battle tactic, pick 2 objective markers on the battlefield that are not wholly within your territory. You complete this battle tactic if you control both the objective markers at the end of that turn. So you could kick them backwards if you were Sons of Behemoth. And it'd be yours as long as they started in the right place. You're good.
One thing to be really important here, it says wholly within your territory. Okay. If an objective is on a line between territories, that does not count as wholly within. It's just within both territories.
Yeah.
So essentially what you're saying here is that if you control the 2 markers you pick, then you get it. So you might already have them and know that you're not gonna lose them because you'll go. So you could just go, I'll take those 2, I'm gonna keep them. Or you could it's quite good early on because you might just run your screens up to tag the 2 middle objectives, and then obviously that gives them a very easy way to score conquer.
Yeah.
So like you've got to be like, I think sometimes it's really good to get rid of ferocious advance straight away if you go first, because it's just an easy one. But you can do it late game as well if you've got an army that's got a baseline units that just like hang about and you don't need to use them for much. Like it's quite good if you've got like buff wizards that just run around because you don't care about them running.
No, not at all.
But yeah, it's aggressive expansion is one I use quite a lot. Then you've got monstrous takeover. When you reveal this battle tactic, pick a monster from your starting army on the battlefield. You complete this battle tactic if that monster is contesting an objective marker that you control at the end of this turn, and that objective is not contested by an enemy monster.
So he has to be part of you scoring an objective, basically.
Yeah, but you need to have that objective as well. You can't just be like a monster surrounded by 30 dudes.
Yeah.
You need to actually like have it and no enemy monster. So like, if you get like, if there's an objective that you're going to go and send your vampire and zombie dragon to kill the 5 dogs on, that's an easy one, right? Because you're going to go in and just kill them and then take the objective, and then you're a monster. They don't have a monster there. So it's quite good. Then you've got Savage Spearhead. You complete this battle tactic. There are 2 or more units from your starting army wholly within your opponent's territory at the end of the turn. If 2 or more of those units are monsters, score an additional victory point.
That's the easiest one to use the wizardy spell and make a thing, right?
Mm-hmm. It's also very good
one monster
if you've got reserves that come on from the board edge.
Oh yeah, because you could auto get it pretty much.
Because you could put like 2 Blood Knight units in their territory, 6 away from the edge, and just go with that. They're both in your territory now. As long as they don't die by the end of the turn, you're fine, right?
Yeah.
So
which they won't do by definition unless, like, even if they fail their charges, they're safe. So it's only if you do something silly. Absolutely, yeah. And there are monsters you can skirmish on with as well in certain armies. So not a bad one.
The monster one is tricky. Might be okay in Zinch if you've got like a fast wizard on a disc that casts a spell, and then add another monster in your army, like a Lord of Change or something. But he's normally blobbing around the back, right? So Archeon, maybe
Sons of Behemoth or Stonehorns.
Stonehorns, yeah.
Destruction in general, I think, are probably a fairly tasty one with this. Maybe a bit of death.
Makes you want to take double more Crusher, right?
Yeah. So, question: having read through all of these, the word monster's written everywhere there. Do you more readily consider putting monsters in your army as a result of this, or do you still try and make the best army, and if there's a monster in it, great?
I think you should have a monster in every army.
Especially this season in particular.
It's Ghur, right? So
yeah.
I'm just trying to think, like,
some armies would struggle with it, or some builds
But you
of
do
particular
get
armies.
bonuses if you kill monsters as well. So if you play against, like an Avangori or a Sons of Bahamut army, and you kill a monster every turn, you don't kill them all in one go. You just stagger it. You're going to get an extra point every time you do it. So like, it's a bit of a weird one. I think it really depends on your army. Like most of the armies I play tend to have them. Like I've got Be'lakor in my slaves. I've got Manfred, a Vengorian lord, in my Soulblight. I've got if I take Iron Jaws, I'll take a Maw Crusher. If I think Nighthaunt will struggle because you don't have a monster. Maybe a Mongol.
Of course, you can if you've got a combat-y hero as well, who isn't a monster. Then he's a pretty good recipient for the spell, which can unlock this. But obviously, it doesn't matter whether you gave your guy the monster keyword or not if he's 5 wounds, 5 up save, and dies to a stiff breeze. You know, so having a
unless you're going twice
hero in your arm,
if you get the turn, the next turn you could just not cast it again. You're right. So
so having a but you know, if something needs to be slain by a monster or something like that, having a combat-y dude and a fairly reliable wizard. It's only a 5 to cast, but you know your opponent may get to dispel it. Having an option for that is, you know, pretty important as well, because that's the way to sneak through without starting with one, or your way to get your second or something.
You can do stuff like you can cast it on another hero. So you know, like if you've got like Severith, he's a ranged shooting hero, but he's not a monster. But then if you cast a spell on him to make him a monster, then he shoots someone off with his bow. He's technically killed the model. So
absolutely.
There's a lot of... I think any monster with a shooting attack is particularly strong. I think Sylvaneth are really good because they've got the shooting on all their big characters.
Well, it's got some incredibly cheap monsters.
And they're very, very resilient.
Yeah. Their tree men are obscenely cheap now, aren't they? They're like
190,
200 or 190 or...
but the, you know, like I know Alariel's expensive, but she is really that good. And she could bring a tree lord on. So I know she does not for be a starting army, but some of these don't say that. It just says if it was just for a friendly monster. So and again, it's like so I think Soul Grinders are good because they got shooting and they're a monster.
Unsung heroes, weird in the middle choice.
But I think it's an interesting time because when you play through the missions, you find that the actual choice of these missions and what you're playing against and what you've got left of the table makes a huge difference. Because the problem is, like, if you have a monster, then it's like they can bring it down, kill the monster. They do it with their monster, and then it's another one. So basically, you get one. You'll get 2 for the monster, 1 if you do it with your monster, and then another 1 because you killed a monster, so you're going to get 4 points out of that. So by not having a monster, you deny it. So it's like... if
you have got them, you should definitely be thinking about protecting them. You know, there might be turns where you wanted to get a CP, but actually it made more sense to heal your guy those D3 wounds or whatever. There's going to be some big flip-flops on small decisions or small nuances as a result of this stuff, for sure.
That's why I think Emerald Life Swarm's a very good spell. So
there's some people who have Sylvaneth. There's some people who have access to board-wide heals or specific heals, and then you can add Emerald Life Swarm on top of that. I worked out that you can make a keeper with 5 D3 heals in a turn. Actually, 1 from the War Scroll, 1 from a command ability, 1 from an item, Emerald Life Swarm.
That might be why they cost like 150 points more than they should.
Something else. No, your list has to be crap to accommodate it, but you know it's there if you want. And just 3d3 is incredibly reliable. Minimum of 3 wounds is, you know, it's a lot better than 1d6, which is so swinging. So that's cool. I like them. I think people should really bear these in mind if they feel they've turned up to a table and on paper on the table they have lost the rock paper scissors matchup of who has the best army. Because you could turn up and be completely outclassed just because, you know, you took a glass cannon doesn't go first army and you're facing a high quality shooting does go first army or something like that. But you could still strategically work your way through these and end up on top of your opponent at the end of the game very easily, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I think that's pretty much everything we want to cover in this video, just so you've got an idea of like the more detail about these grand strategies, the realm pack. Obviously, we've done a live show where we do some lists and we talk about some like using the Hunters of the Heartlands. And we obviously be doing more content around AOS3, and this is the pack we're going to always be playing, so we'll talk more about it.
Get used to this.
Yeah, we're going to release some videos on each scenario. There's 12 scenarios, so I kind of want to go through each one and talk about like some of the nuances of the missions, particularly to do with seismic shift. It's quite important to realize, because when the first time you play them, you might lose because you just don't take that into account.
You can plan everything perfectly apart from that and lose the game easily, right?
Yeah. So it's worth talking about. So yeah, thanks for watching. Obviously we've got a competition for anyone who signs up through YouTube membership, which is the join button. Details are in the description. The Patreon, the links in the description, and donates through Ko-fi, where the link's on the screen, but also in the description. That if you do that before the 15th of July, then you'll be entered into a competition to win a copy of Dominion, and we've got some other prizes of dice and Element Games vouchers. So
yeah, probably chuck in some objective markers as well, given that we just spent nearly 2 hours talking about objectives.
Yeah, why not?
We do have them out, and they are super useful. And with anything you can use to put on the table, guys, while there is so much going on that makes things more clear, it means that you don't have to worry about something or measure things. If there is ever a time to make your life easier, it is now, while everything is new and confusing. So I spoke about simpler armies recently, and maybe not, trying out 15 new units or a new army that you've never touched before, at least learning your war scrolls. Same with the objective markers, pop them down the table, you know what's going on. And it's just one less thing that you have to think about or measure or be on top of. So they're a pretty good option. We'll throw a set of those in with a giveaway as well.
Yeah, and if you want to get a set, then you can go to Element Games and search for FACEHAMMER. If you click the link through, that helps us. They ship worldwide, so don't worry if you're in another part of the world. And they are I quite like them because, one, they've got a non-slip back. They come in a case. You get 3-inch and 6-inch separate, so you don't have double rings. And they're a nice blue colour, so although you can see them, they don't distract from the look of the battlefield, which for me is a big problem with some of the others I've seen. And that's when we designed these, I was really clear I didn't want it to be in your face, that you don't see the models and the terrain and the battlefield, but they're still there when you want to focus on them. You're like, oh, okay, I can see the ring is there, right? Okay,
yeah, exactly.
So I used them actually the other day. They're really good. So the first time I've actually got to use mine because of lockdown, but it was nice to get them. So yeah, that helps us out. But if you sign up to any of that stuff, you'll be included in the draw automatically, so you don't need to do anything other than that. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the content. It's been great to get all the comments and that, and join our Discord to really get involved. And if you sign up,
some amazing list chat going on currently.
Yeah, it's really funny because in the Chaos channel, there's all these people talking about Slanesh and builds and trying to get the min max, and you go to the Destruction channel and there's a conversation about where Kragnos gets his power and is he better than Gorka Morka? And you're like, yeah, that's a Destruction channel. And the Chaos channel is all about power gaming, and then the Destruction one's all about story. So I did enjoy that. I was just chuckling to myself.
Picked the wrong army for power gaming, didn't we? But we're trying our best, guys. We'll get there.
So
just as a final thing as well, Russ and I have had a little chat. I'm going to record my games more than I have ever done in the past, and what I'll be doing is we'll find some way to make it so there is some type of ongoing diary, so you can see the process that I go through when I start out with an army and I tweak it and tweak it and tweak it every game or every couple of games or post event or pre-event, and hopefully that might be insightful to some people. And I'll also it's a great opportunity for people to give me input to help me out. So we'll do that as well.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll catch you all again soon.
Cheers, guys. Catch you in a bit.